if you are ready. And we have our second 2.5 session, which is a continuation, a second half of the Change Champion module. And I do want to welcome our special guests from the core team here. So I'm just going to share my screen in a moment and walk through a couple of things as we start. So we did have the first module in talking about presenting issues, and we had a session with Keaton last time to walk us through the project mode roadmap with some in-depth discussion last time, as well as doing some introduction practice of the Change Champions. So today we'll go through organizational diagnosis. And the purpose of this whole program is to help develop the change agents at the local level so they can support the change management process for the whole implementation of the OASIS system. And so part of this is being able to build on the ATC way and using different tools for facilitating change in the local workplace. So our focus is on developing knowledge about the tools, but more importantly, the practice of the tools. And the building a cadre of the change champions who will then support one another across the different geographical location. So having the core team members here today is very important as we step into continuing our work. Our focus after the conversation with the core team will be to go further into step 1 and step 2 of the change management process. So welcome, I'm glad you are here, and I want to just provide an opportunity for each of us to introduce ourselves, check in, and then it's the discussion with the core team members before we do a report out. After the core team member discussion, that will take us until about 3 o'clock. We'll have a brief 10-minute break, and then we'll do a report out on any of the homework assignments before going into some of our material for step 1 and step 2 of change management. And then we'll do homework towards the end for our next session. So to check in is 1 word for how you're feeling and 1 reflection from introducing yourself. So at this point, I'm going to just shift and ask, I'm going to go around the screen and have people check in to just 1 word how you're feeling and 1 question that is on your mind for the day. Oh, and Tanya's joining us as well. Perfect timing. Okay, so I'm going to start with Mike Baker.
All right.
How are you? 1 word for how you're doing and 1 question for the day.
The 1 word for how I'm doing at this moment is going to be overwhelmed because of this meeting, but other meetings. My question would be, I'm curious as to the feedback that the other members of this team received from the domains that they're responsible for from the groups regarding how well they feel that the SAP implementation is going so far, and if we have similar questions from our team members.
Thank you. Karen Lachowski. How are you doing? 1 word for how you're doing and 1 question.
Well, Mike took the word right out of my mouth, overwhelmed and tired. Yeah, I guess my question would be is what the perception so far, because we're doing a lot of work on our end, what's the perception on the other end as to how they think we're doing as a core team in communicating and preparing them for all this training?
Okay, thank you. Brenda.
Okay, I am Brenda, and I am, I guess right now, this very moment, I am a bit flustered.
That's okay.
And
that's being honest.
And my question for the day, I don't really have one right now. I'm gonna skip that. Sorry.
That's perfectly fine. Amalia. And you're on mute. If you unmute yourself.
Yes, yes. Now I feel too bossy. Okay. We finished the close. And the question is, definitely what we this session.
Okay. Ryan.
Okay. I guess it would be probably challenged, and it's not really more of a question, but more just kind of a statement, I guess, right now in the situation is that the reason why I'm saying challenged is with the severe ramp up of production and everything going mass production, I'm trying to keep everyone positive mindset to do the modules and get through all these sessions, but it is a bit of a struggle. Obviously, creating that positive mindset because it's involving overtime and trying to keep up with these training modules. So that's why I'm saying challenged, because obviously it's trying to promote everybody right now. Keep that positive mindset.
Thank you. Kenny?
Hi, I'm going to use the word optimistic. I think it's great to see, you know what I mean, this many people coming together to talk about this and discuss what's going on. And the last session was my first session, so I'm 1 for 2, and I'm just trying to absorb everything. So my question would be for the group though, with the rollout and what's going on, and understanding that the team in Bradford is first, like what sort of steps will be taken after that first to roll out so that we can do better with the second one and then do better with the third and focus on that continuous improvement as we roll out these facilities.
Thank you. Suzanne?
I feel excited that the core team is here and they're going to give you some insight into the project. My question is around whether we can all stay focused that this is a change champion session and not a technical session. They're going to lay some technical things on you, but the purpose of it is not to take a deep dive into that technical side, but rather to use that information as you go forward and you hear about challenges people are having.
I have Senor Garcia.
Okay, good afternoon. As you know, last session was my first session with you. In the first session, I cannot stay with you, but I think all the information that we are reviewing will help us to work with all our people. I think today I will learn more, and this will improve all our implementation in Guadalajara.
Thank you. Justino?
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, okay. I'm maybe not just one word, 2 words, happy and optimistic. I think we have, after 1 month, after we restart, I'm happy because everybody is safe. Of course, we're struggling with this COVID situation, but fortunately all of our associates are safe. Customers somehow receive all the materials that they are planning to. So, and financially, I think it was not a bad month for Mexico. So happy and optimistic because I guess some of the opportunities that we see in terms of operation, we hope to enhance all these inventory management systems, visibility on the floor, transactions, etc. By adapting this ERP in the future. So this is my 2 words. 1 is for free. You asked for 1, second is free. And the question that I have is maybe just to see what is the evolution of this session. I have been in the first session, and every session that we go through, I think there is more people involved. And as I always say, I think more people, more brain, more ideas, and more positive energy towards this changing point in our organization. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Hector?
Thank you. Basically, what I feel, as Amalia mentioned, just a little bit under pressure because we conclude the financial report for the month close. So, but we have to go back and then analyze the forecast and budget and trainings, SAP trainings, and so on. So not too much time to brief. As I would like to say, completing. So just a quick brief, and then continue with the task. And at this moment, I don't have any question about this session.
Okay. Thank you. Josh.
Hello. I'll say hopeful would be the word. I'm optimistic that this can be a valuable time for both teams and that we can help you in your roles and responsibilities on this team. And in terms of the question, it's probably revolving around the same thing. You know, what is the best way that we can help you be successful in your responsibility? So understanding what that is.
Thank you. Edson.
Hello, everyone. I'm optimistic, a bit disconnected because in the last session I could not attend. A lot of things going on down here, but still engaged with the project, and of course, looking forward to continue working in the next steps with the team.
Okay, thank you. Tanya. Oops, you're muted, Tanya.
Hello.
Hello. So
I'm
one
fine.
word, how are you, and one question.
I'm fine, thanks. First, I'm fine. Then I a little thoughtful because last session there were many things, many details about the project. So I don't really have a question for today, but I feel well. I can say just let us know what will come with this session of training, and then we will ask something if we have doubts.
Okay. Thank you. Jason? Jason is...
I'm trying to figure out where to unmute. We're used to Teams, so we're all getting used to our Zoom here.
So you're muted, Jason, if you're speaking? Do you have visual? Okay. Maybe not at the moment. Okay. Shyam?
Hi, Shyam Gumudela. Thank you again for letting us join your change management meeting. It's really helpful for us. One word is tired, busy, overwhelmed, everything that Mike and Karen has said, you know. It's more not a question, it's more of something that we want to know from all of you. We hear secondhand feedback from different people. We would like to know right now, you know, at the end of the meeting or during the meeting, how exactly the team feels about, you know, Ryan said, you know, there's overtime involved, there's a lot of things going on with the ramp up. So trying to understand what we need to do to adjust that, you know, so that everybody is, you know, feeling positive and able to contribute in a positive way, right?
Okay, thank you. Chad.
So I'd have to pair with challenging, as Ryan mentioned, and then just very, very curious or excited about the openness to embrace the change across sites. We've had a lot of interesting feedback and seen some really good examples of way things are done, but being able to adapt them into the process and share them across sites and take advantage of the willingness to you know, have one system that benefits everyone. Just anxious to hear everyone on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Jose, great to have you join us. Do you have visual, Jose?
Laptop.
Okay. How are you? One word for how are you and one question that you may have.
I don't have question, and I feel excited with the new knowledge, and I hope lost my nervous. I don't know how do you say. I'm very shy with all this.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. And last but not least, Yvette, how are you? And one question.
I am same as the first day. I'm still excited about the project, and my question is how can I continue to add value to the team, right? So that's question.
By being present. You are valued team members. I'm really glad you're here to work on this together. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen for a moment to just review, check in on where we are with this change. Let's see. So in looking at this change process, today we have Josh, Karen, and Jason and Shyam with us. And then next time, Chad and also Bob will join us next week. So I want to hand a couple of minutes over to Suzanne to help frame this conversation. Suzanne?
So the purpose of the core team meeting with us today is to hopefully answer some of the questions that surfaced from last week and questions that you may have encountered as you began discussions with people inside of your site. And what the core team is going to bring forward today is what they're doing in their individual scopes. And so for us, we should be taking away that Chad is working inside a supply chain. So it's important that I'm connecting with people in the supply chain area. Karen and Jason are working inside of finance, so we need to be connecting with those people as well. So we should be taking notes about where they are today and where they're headed, and having a better understanding and clarity inside of the projects and inside of each scope.
Okay. So any questions before we begin? All right, so if I could have each of the core team members, Josh, Karen, Jason, and Shyam, if you could share some of the items listed on the bullet, starting with your role and responsibility, the functional areas you're supporting, current state, next state, the timing of activities, expectation and interactions you seek, and taking questions. Okay.
If you have something that you wanted to show, Diana will share the screen with you, and you can show something if you have prepared anything.
Yeah. But this is really informal conversations to help you connect in with one another as well. So Josh, you have the floor.
Okay. I don't have any content to share, or please stop me as I'm walking through this. A little bit about myself. I'm the IT manager. I reside in Bellefontaine plant. My team and I support facilities in Bellefontaine, Bradford, Torrance, ARG, and some in Ypsilanti as well. A little bit about myself. I started at AGC in 2006 and been in the current role that I'm in now for 4 years. So within this project, again, the team that I have includes Drew Houchin, Terry Richardson, and Andrew Borger. We're heavily involved in this project in some specific areas. One of them, which would be scanning and printing. So we are responsible to quote, purchase, and then configure, document, and provide scanning and printing for Bradford, SLP, and Guadalajara as they're preparing for user testing and then an eventual go live. So there's a huge increase in that hardware within this project from where we're at today in our environment versus where we're going. And so working with specifically Chad and Shyam, and designing what we're going to need, and then we go to the vendors, we get the right equipment, and then we configure it. We work with some of your team members, such as Roger Milliner from Bradford, Jose and Jorge and SLP in Guadalajara, to get that equipment configured and ready for us to be able to provide to users for testing. So scanning and printing is a big thing. We are also responsible for supporting the Microsoft Azure environment, which is Microsoft's cloud environment that we are setting up the entire SAP landscape in. So we're working on setting up backups, working on providing support to the disaster recovery and highly available solution that we're trying to put SAP into. Setting up monitoring so that we know when issues are arising with those systems, so that we can prevent potential downtime with the systems. Cost management is also a focus of ours. So within Microsoft Azure, the cloud is great for a lot of things, but it has a price tag for how we configure it. So we are working on trying to optimize the performance, but also trying to minimize the cost that's associated. Another area that we are heavily involved in is the analytics side of things. So we are working with Power BI to provide reporting to the business team from this SAP system. So we're working with consultants, working with Jason and Karen as they know the requirements of some of the reporting. So we're taking that data from SAP, putting it into a SQL database system, and then extracting that out to Power BI to provide to the business users so that they can gain the right information out of those reports. Our team is also responsible to this point with building the EDI environment that is new to support the SAP environment as well. So we're building those servers. We're working with the IT applications team, such as Jerry Hart, to bring in customers into that application, completing testing, and again, to support the SAP switchover. We are also developing the on-base application some of you may have heard of to replace DataMagine, which was used within the AP department. So that's a system that we were also responsible for building and then testing and then rolling that out to your teams. This is a tool that beyond just AP automation is also heavily capable of workflow management, document storage and retrieval. And so we're expanding that tool out to beyond just AP, but also to sales and supply chain and other teams as the requests come in. We also have a team member, Terry Richardson, who is working on the maintenance connection to SAP integration. So Terry is heavily involved with the maintenance connection team as well as the SAP team on supporting the integrations that we will provide for that. So we're going to provide inventory synchronization between the systems, some cost attributes out of SAP into maintenance connection, part creation so that they can maintain parts in both systems. So that's a lot of what we're doing. Andrew and Terry are probably spending 80 to 90% of their time on a daily basis working within this project in some capacity. Drew is to a lesser extent, maybe 30%. So the team here at the plant is not just doing plant IT, but heavily involved inside the ERP side. So that's kind of a high level snapshot of our involvement or our role in the project. Some of the things that we are working with, at the sites right now is, again, we've got some test scanners and printers deployed to Bradford, SLP, and Guadalajara. The Bradford team has been really good, kind of being our eyes and ears to give us some support in configuring those devices as our travel has been limited. So we certainly appreciate that. The SLP and Guadalajara IT staff there has been really good as well. I know we're not quite ready to use that yet, but we are ready to go. In the near future, we will be sending a more significant quantity of scanners and printers to your locations as we get closer to go live. Hopefully we will be able to travel there and support that more hands-on than requiring your staff to help us with that. Trying to automate some of those configurations too, so that it's not requiring anybody on site to really configure that for us. Yeah, so that's kind of a snapshot of, again, what we're doing right now on site. As we go live in the future, more than likely you'll see at least one, maybe two members of our team on site to support your sites as you're going live, to prepare and assist with any issues that may come up as we're going through that process. Any questions from any of that?
Josh, have you met all the folks here and sort of connect in with the role that they have as well?
Some of them I have, not all of them though. So I'm very familiar with the Bradford team. Obviously, we've been there many different times. The SLP and Guadalajara teams, not as much. The Farmington Hills staff, I'm pretty familiar with.
Hey, Diana, can I take 30 seconds just to confirm? Me preguntan que si está yendo que si están hablando muy rápido o que si está bien la velocidad.
Está bien.
¿Está bien?
Sí.
Okay, thank you, Diana.
All right, thank you very much, Josh. It's an intense load that you have there. Karen and Jason, you're up next.
Okay, I'll begin. First of all, yeah, thanks to the IT team. They've been phenomenal in helping us with a lot of setups and testing. I'm trying to learn all that stuff as I go along too. So trust me, everybody's gonna be on the same page with that. To give you some background on myself, I started with AGC in 2016 as a senior financial analyst. Went down to Hebron, Kentucky to learn the financial setups down there to bring it up into Michigan. So I was very heavily involved in all the daily, monthly, yearly stuff they had to do to keep the financial team moving forward, but we did the transition. Probably about beginning of 2019, I was transitioning over to the ERP team part-time till they had someone in my position there and doing 50-50 till I got more 100% on board, probably about just before May. So I have a good basis for understanding the financial part of the business side. Dealt a lot with, I would say, between the controllers, program managers, different things, understanding our tooling process, different things like that going on. So that's really been beneficial for me, helping set some of the framework that's been going on the financial side. So my primary role on the finance is pretty much anything that impacts AP, GL, AR, month-end closing, corporate reporting, taxes, all those kind of encompass areas, including what we're going to have going forward is called project systems. That's going to be a project module that we can track any of our capital projects, tooling projects, that kind of stuff. That's been a very segregated process today, very Excel-based and just very piecemeal. I'm very excited about this module portion so that we can actually track, maintain a better handle on our projects. So I'm sure that once everybody gets used to that, they'll love it. I've been heavily involved in some of the integration testing when we talked about OnBase with AP, learning that system, helping do some of the training with Hector and Amalia we've done so far, and along with Bradford. It's going to be used, like I said, with the AP side, especially with CSO on the US side, but for the amount of time, amount that they will probably be using in Mexico, you guys done a great job in helping do some of the user acceptance training in that. That's been very appreciative. Also, you will be using Edicom. I haven't been involved in that much, the consultants have, but I will be learning more about that later. Behind the scene, I would say a lot of the stuff that we've been having to work on, especially Jason and I as a tag team, is setting up all the profit centers, cost centers, GL accounts. That's really building the framework for our finance side. So we've taken GL accounts from all our locations, and I don't remember the number if it was, but it was in the thousands, and we had to bring it down to 800 GL accounts. So we've done a lot of work at restructuring what makes sense. And as we go through this testing and training on your scenarios, that kind of stuff, we'll be able to modify that even more so that we're going to look at more consistency across the company as far as our reporting and what's being booked where. So we're going to see a lot of great output of that in the end. Next thing, wanted to just touch base on, we've gone through training at the locations, all 3 locations. We call it the first cycle through, basic finance transactions based upon what the locations do on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. Right now, we're trying to really push hard on actually testing these different scenarios, because the more testing we do, the more we understand is if the system is set up right. Do we have the right GL accounts? Do we have the structure set up right? So that part I want to emphasize in my conversation, if I don't say it enough, is we need to test as an associate, no matter if it's logistics, accounting, finance, whatever. We need to test what we do today to make sure SAP is set up for what you need. We're going to start with additional training and testing. I call it cycle 2 because it's just kind of round 2 coming up here in the end part of July. So we do like 4-hour days, 5 days a week. We go through additional material, more detail, more finite, and we try to build upon it. Build upon from transactions, build upon what these transactions do, all the way down to integration and reporting. So there's a very good logical process through it. So the more you do it, the more you see it, you will start to get more comfortable with the system. Trust me. It'll start, oh yeah, T-code this, and you just go right to it, no problem. So it'll get there, trust me. The next thing I would say is we're still going to plan on right now going live in Canada first, obviously in October. The COVID has definitely gave us a challenge on this training and being on site. We're doing a lot of it remotely right now. We're going to try to ramp up being on site there first, especially when we get closer to go live. Then a discussion will happen too as far as travel restrictions and whatever in Mexico, but Keaton has it all on his radar as to what we can do and when we can do it. So that's still kind of up in the air. But what we have built right today, again, is on the finance side. And we're working with the IT people on the Power BI. So you'll have a report. You could just go in, drop down, select your cost center, select whatever. There's your P&L. There's your balance sheet. Here's your consolidated report to send to corporate. So a lot of the stuff we're trying to do and are doing is going to be making your job more efficient. We just got to get over the hump of learning and making sure things are set up the way it needs to be. And Jason will tell you too, we're available email, phone, Skype, Teams, chat, whatever. And usually within 24 hours, we're responding back to your questions or finding the right person who can answer your questions, because we try to keep our momentum going here. That's kind of about my end of it. So I'll let Jason kind of take team on his piece of the finance.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Is it possible to get visual?
Oh, good. Sure. I have a quarantine beard, so you can't make fun of me.
You said, did you get your hair cut, Jason?
No. Okay, can you see me, hear me?
Looking good.
All right, perfect. So to further touch on what Karen was talking about within the finance and accounting part of this, I as well am on that. For those I have not had the privilege to meet, my name is Jason Geyer. I'm located in the Bellefontaine, Ohio facility, along with Josh and Chad. Been there since 2016. My main focus was I came in as the controller of the Midwest AVO and then took over the Torrance AVO controller role as well. I initially started on the ERP project in November of 2018 and been working on that since. So basically, as far as an overview on my role on the project is like Karen said, we do a lot of things in tandem, but I'm more on the costing and controlling kind of reporting side. More or less with the plants, the plants in the manufacturing world, helping with the inventories, supporting logistics, supply chain where need be. So we do have some things we're running in parallel, but like Karen said, she'll be more in tune with the AP, AR, and project stuff, and I'll be more in tune with the controlling, the COPA, which is margin analysis, costing, budget planning, things like that. So as far as current site level activities that we're interacting today, as Hector and Amalia and if Elsa was on the call, she'd tell you, we're doing a lot of testing in parallel. We just completed cycle 1. We'll be moving into cycle 2/3 in the next couple weeks, actually starting late next week, but more towards the end of the month. So we'll be doing AP, AR, kind of what we did in the first cycle, kind of retouching on that, making sure the users are getting more comfortable, more acclimated. And as Karen said, can't touch enough on the importance of the users and the SMEs going in the system, doing the testing and Panay themselves as well. Because that's really the benefit of this whole thing is we can handhold and we can help and we can answer questions, but until the users are in there doing it themselves, learning where, the design maybe has a flaw in it, that's the feedback that we need at this point. So from an expectation of how long we'll be working with them, obviously until go live and through go live, for those folks that might be concerned that we're kind of, going to turn the plug from Mapix to SAP on the go live date and kind of go to the next one. That's not the case. We plan to support on site for the first couple weeks and then be there as needed after that, kind of during the hypercare phase. But we'll also be available by phone and email and Teams. So we know it's a big task for everybody. It's a lot of extra work, but we will not be leaving them, running on their own and behind. So we'll be there to assist and get them through it till they're comfortable. As far as what we're working on next, I can touch on from the costing and the margin analysis side. I know Karen and Josh both touched on it, but the Power BI is very important. It's a very powerful tool that we've got developed outside of the system that is integrated with SAP. It's basically an internet link that'll be provided, and it's going to be great for basically your accounting team, your plant managers, and your department managers to be able to go in there and run their specific reports for their locations, get that real-time data. Because that's the great thing about SAP, it's real-time data. We don't have to go run, integration or anything. It's there. So it has a refresh tool there. Josh's IT team is definitely going to keep that up to par with us. And the reporting function has a drill down. So we've never had that before. It is exportable to Excel. But I think for decision-making purposes and understanding your data more quickly and proactively than we have now at the locations, it's going to be a great resource. From a costing perspective, it's going to be a little unique and different for the 2 Mexico locations in Bradford. Currently, we have not had standard costs in our systems, so we have not had the ability to get true margin analysis and understand, our overheads. So that'll change. It's complex. The configuration has taken a while with the consultants, but again, I'll be working really close with Hector and Amalia and Elsa and any of the plant managers that want to join so they understand what we've designed, what our corporate management team has wanted streamlined across all locations in order to get overhead rates and accurate costing in there. So it is pretty neat, but again, I'll be working with those folks to make sure they're very comfortable, before we get to start the budget planning and interacting that way. So, and as Karen mentioned, what are the easiest way to get a hold of us? Any way you feel comfortable, whether it's Teams, Skype, phone call, email, text, it does not matter. We're working many hours, weekends, weeknights. So if there's any question, shoot it, fire away. We'll get you an answer. That's our job. And we do appreciate your feedback. So if there's issues, if there's something not working or you need something right away, that's our job, but we need that feedback. So it kind of goes both ways. We need the users to be proactive back with us and let us know what's not working for them. But like I said, I can't stress enough the importance of the user going in and doing the testing themselves as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Jason. Would you check with the team? Yes.
Yes. Otra vez, ¿cómo vamos? ¿Todo bien? Héctor, Amalia, preguntas, dudas. ¿Se está entendiendo?
¿No? Sí, no dudas.
Me preguntaban que sí, creo que habló algo acerca de los ciclos y cómo funcionan. ¿Tienen dudas sobre eso? ¿Quedó claro? ¿Todo bien?
Pues mencionó que estábamos ahorita en el ciclo 1, ¿no?
Ajá, ajá.
Primer ciclo. Ok. No tengo.
Barrios, ¿no?
No, los ciclos son los diferentes procesos que van a seguir en SAP para la implementación. No, Ivette, no, es que me estaba preguntando, perdón, me estaba preguntando, Justino, qué quedan los ciclos.
Sí, precisamente, ok, pero si está entendido en qué ciclo están y cómo va a funcionar y todo, entonces está bien. Ok. Okay, good.
Very good. Thank you. Shyam, do you have visual, Shyam?
I can start. Just like Jason, probably I'm not as good as on the show. 1 second, maybe just adjust my light so you guys can see my face.
You look like $1 million, Sam.
Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you. I'm Shyam Gumudela. I joined AGC about a year and a half ago. This November, it'll be 2 years. So I started, my prior experience is in SAP, logistics area. Most of it is in logistics, not finance. So my role here is, again, anything to do with logistics, nothing to do with Jason or Karen, just joking, but nothing to do with finance. Most of it is covered by Jason and Karen for the finance side, but my role is more support any area of logistics, meaning sales and distribution, materials management or procurement, quality management, anything to do with logistics, right? So, so that's my role, to do any kind of testing, any kind of business process integration with our consulting team, with everybody else. So all of it I handle along with Chad. Chad is also one more integral piece, just like Karen and Jason tag team. Chad and myself tag team on the logistics side. Right, just looking at other things at specific role. The current activities that we are working on, primarily, I'm working with almost everybody that, in Mexico as well as Bradford for data migration. So we're reaching out to them anytime we have any issues with the materials, any purchasing information that is missing, any, customer information that is missing, because our biggest task is to take the data that we have in our legacy systems today and move that to SAP, because there's no real way to take them and then enter manually, right? That's not going to be feasible, right? So we have to write some automation to make sure that we take all the data from our legacy systems and move to SAP. So we have built this legacy systems over the past 20 years. So there's bound to be some issues with the data. So anytime we find issues that cannot be logically derived at a logical conclusion, we reach out to this respective users, right? We go to the purchasing team, we go to the sales team and find out, okay, what's going on here? What is the thing? So we go back and fix the things, right? So that's one of the main things that we're involved in right now, data migration. We call that as data migration task that we work with Chad to make sure, hey, Chad, can you tell us why it's happening? And then he'll reach out to the respective users or he'll suggest a name where we can go find that information. And we're going to, this task, we don't limit it to particular location, right? Because the materials or customers or vendors are going to be used across all locations. So when we do this, we keep everybody in mind and then build the logic, right? So that's what we're doing for Mexico, US, SL, and Bradford. So, and even we include ARG also for that, right? This will go on from now all the way until go live, just before go live, right? Because there's going to be so many iterations that we have to do, and there's no way that we can get that accurate in the first time go around. So we'll do multiple iterations to make sure the data is as accurate as possible. And if there is something that needs to be corrected, we'll have to do that before go live, right? And the same thing with the testing. So the next, we have 4 cycles of testing in SLP and Bradford or in Guadalajara. We did 2 cycles. Now we'll be doing the 3rd cycle. We will publish the goals of the cycle 3 and cycle 4. What is the goal of and goals and objectives of each cycle? I think Jason and Keaton are working on consolidating all the input from the core team to provide what is expected from the team. So our main expectation is, like Jason was saying, we want you to thoroughly test the system and make sure that it is working as per the AGC's business process. Not how SAP should work, but how AGC works and does it meet with AGC's requirements, right? So that's the main thing that we're looking for your feedback. You want to execute the things in the system and find out, oh, does it work with AGC's business process? Oh, this is how I do it, AGC. Does it match with what SAP team is recommending? So that's the key piece that we wanted to focus on. Oh, I executed this, it gives the result. That's typical, but we want to take it to the next step and say, okay, now this is how I do it. Am I able to do this properly in SAP? And that does it match with our AGC's business process? That's very key for a whole project, not just for the team, but for the whole project and organization, right? That's the whole purpose of testing. It's not like, okay, we give you a document and then you go through, oh, everything checks out. That's not the purpose. The purpose is, does it match with our business requirements at AGC, right? Does it help me in making my job easier, or does it help me to make my job better, right? The whole purpose of testing is that will continue from now until go live for Bradford, and even after go live for the rest of the plants after that, right? I'm looking at the questions that Susan has forwarded to cover. One of them is, how will the go live look like, right? So October 1st is the schedule for Bradford. So once we go live in Bradford, at the point of go live, there will be a team on site, right, at Bradford to support any of the things that will be happening. And there'll be a dedicated team at the corporate location along with the consultants and the AGC team sitting in a war room type of setting where we will take any call that comes on and any help that is needed to make sure we address that right away, because it's a go live situation, right? And that is typical in any project. You have a dedicated team to support the go live situation in 1 or 2 weeks, depending on how good we do it. 2 weeks, there'll be people here, there'll be people on site to make sure everything is going right as per the process, right? So that we call the stabilization period, right? 2 weeks to 1 month, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the size of the implementation, right? So that will be one of the things that we'll do go live, right? After stabilizing Bradford, our plan is to go on to the Mexico, which is Guadalajara and SLP. So once we have that, we will have the same scenario there. We'll have dedicated team at that location, and we'll have a team at Farmington Hills to make sure support is covered on both sides, right? What does the go live look like? I'm looking through the question, sorry. The best way to connect, like Jason and Karen said, we are working all the time. Anything is fine. Email, phone call. If you don't feel comfortable to talk to us, just reach out to anyone that who is comfortable to chat, or anybody else, or even Karen and you, Jason. Just we'll come back to you within like I said, 24 hours, or even faster than that most of the time, because almost all of us are working pretty much all the time zones between US, Mexico, and Canada. So we're always open for business until we go live. Any questions?
Just confirm, Guadalajara will go live in January 1st, 2021?
Yes, we're looking at either the end of December or being first week of January, Amalia. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yvette, do you want to check with the team?
Todo bien, se fue Edson, pero Gabriel, ¿sí has estado en contacto tú con Sham y con el equipo de cadena de suministro?
Sí, hemos estado en contacto, Tania.
¿Y no hay problema? ¿Todo bien?
Bien, ahí el equipo por ahí en los entrenamientos siente que han ido un poquito rápido, algunas personas, otros muy bien, pero tenemos el respaldo de los videos, igual lo vamos a ver una vez que presentemos los puntos en la siguiente sesión.
Ok, bien. Ok.
Gracias.
Cheyenne, did you have anything else to share?
Oh, no, that's it. Any questions? I'm open, but again, don't have, if you want to email us, that's fine too.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting us into this meeting to kind of give an overview of what is expectations.
Yeah.
And just like that, same thing that every other team member has said, we are interested in your feedback, how the testing is going, any positive or negative, because that will give us a chance to adjust, because we still have 2 more cycles and we still have 2 more other plans that are supposed to go live. So any feedback, either positive or negative, is always welcome, so that it gives us a chance to adjust for the future sessions.
Okay. So in terms of an open discussion, does anyone have any comment or feedback or questions for any of the core team members?
I have a comment. So my comment is, first is thank you to the core team members for joining and sharing their scope today. And to our site champions, you should be taking away that as you start to meet people and somebody has a challenge, for instance, my scanner isn't working, the batteries die too fast, whatever it is, I have no idea how to enter an invoice. You can now see Karen's face and you know that this is your point of contact, and you should be putting that user in touch with Karen, or you can get in touch with Karen to try to figure out what a possible solution is. You shouldn't be trying to figure out these solutions on your own. Karen will help you to figure out these solutions. She's the expert in that area, or Josh in the area when it comes to scanners. So we should just make sure that you're taking note of who is working in which space. And then further, I heard 2 important questions from Jason, Karen, as well as Sham, that as we go out and have conversations, we should be also asking people how their testing is going. How often are you getting in there and testing? So make sure that you're incorporating that into that conversation. And if they're not, that's something we need to discuss together and get them into that system. The second question I heard from Sham was, so when you're entering an invoice, does it look like, is what you're doing in the SAP look like AGC's process, or is it very, very different and they're becoming frustrated? That's when we go back to Sham and we either get more information, maybe they're not doing it right, or maybe something needs to be adjusted. Make sense? Okay, thank you guys. And Karen.
I also want to say thank you to the core team member. I know that you're crazy busy and a little bit overwhelming, but your presence and your additional information helps the team to just connect with you and to hear and see. Even though the information might have been out there, I always tell leaders, sometimes you have to repeat the same thing multiple times for things to register. So thank you again. All right, we can let the core team members go. Oh, Justino, you have a question.
Yeah, no, maybe in the same topic as Susan mentioned, and I think communication is key. And I know that this COVID situation gonna put more challenge for the team to come closer. Maybe for me, it's first time, and I appreciate all this detailed explanation that Karin and Josh, Jason, Sham did. To me, I'm not interacting with these core technical members at all. And maybe I have more visibility of what needs to happen in this program as a whole. But I appreciate that the time that you took today to be present, and maybe the invitation, even though this is a challenge, eventually you will be interacting with more people, and I hope that you perceive that we are maybe trying to connect with you as well. We have one translator. I guess that you know that this is 100% dedicated to this project for Guadalajara, Mexico. So I think we should use that channel in a case if you feel comfortable to explain and work with the second level. Now we have the opportunity that change champions in this site in SLP, Hector and Edson happen to be also key members that are interacting with the finance and supply chain. So it's I would say double gain for today's session, but I'm pretty sure that you have more to say with the next level of people or the third level of people that eventually those are the ones who we need to ensure that all the communication flow and got to them and the same feedback. We need to make sure that this is up through these guys and finally to you. So I appreciate that. And maybe even though there is a COVID, maybe try to see how further develop that communication in order to flow through the rest of the organization. So I appreciate also the time that you have today for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So I want to let the core team members move on with their days so you could continue doing all the great work that you're doing. And Suzanne, did you have any other last thoughts for the group before they depart?
Thank you. We'll see next week. We'll see Chad and Bob.
Okay. Yvette, any last comments?
No, everything okay.
Yeah, just feedback, positive or negative, please share.
Yes, that will keep the dialogue moving.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So at this point in time, we're going to take a brief break. And so, core team members, thank you again, and we'll see you again in the future. And
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll come back at 3:05, and then we'll start up again. All right, so we have a pause, and we'll start in on our second session.
Para el equipo de México a las 2:05, no a las 3:05, no se vayan a una hora de break.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I am going to start in on the second part of our session, and we have until 4:30 today, or in Mexican time, 3:30? 2:30. So just as a refresher in going through the change management process with identifying the scope and diagnosis analysis, that's what we're focusing on today. In our future session, we'll take a look at the ideation for options and selection. So this is all part of that plan process. And then implement the action plan as part of the do. And then we'll do checking with the progress and performance. So this is you'll see this as our overall change management process repeated for each of our sessions for the OASIS. And following the check then is to continue with the act. So this parallels the PDCA model from the AGC way. So for the purpose of learning today, some of the things that is intended for your takeaway is to really be able to describe the change management process. As change champion, as you're sharing what your role will be, it's also to be able to support various team members from the shop floor to your peers and others about the change management process steps. And then to also identify who are your key stakeholders, who is the stakeholders that will require change management communication. And then to identify some of the different tools that we will be working with today and apply them for effective change management. This will tie quite tightly to the homework that you will be expected to bring back for our third session, in not just explaining the different tools, but being able to practice and use them. And in sharing that with your peer network relationships. So the tools that you will be using, we will ask you to report out as part of your homework for session 3. So in terms of report out on homework assignments, the first homework last time that you had reported out was introducing yourself. And then the next one is identifying stakeholders. Who are some of the people that you will be communicating with directly? So I will just actually at this point go through to ask each of you if you would identify some of the key people that you have created and listed in terms of who will be receiving some of your communication, who you will be checking in with. All right. So if I could start with Amalia, I'm going to go through who I see on my list here. Okay. So Amalia, have you identified a list of people that you will be checking in with for change management?
Oh my God. Yes, I have a list.
Okay. Who are they?
All managers and people that's involved in the SSP implementation, like quality department, supply chain, finance, IT,
Okay.
and purchasing department.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna pass on Tanya because you don't have any direct reports. Brenda? Do you have a list of stakeholders that you've identified that will be receiving communication from you for change management, or that you will be checking on for change issues?
So yeah, I'm basically Ryan and I work together on this, and I mean essentially Elsa for the accounting, and Roger and Robin for the supply chain and purchasing, and Greg is on the materials side of things. Chris is the manager for production. A couple other members, of course, Marina and Virgilio are part of the purchasing team as well. So basically communicating with all of those people on a regular basis.
Okay, great, thank you. When you say regular, do you have a sort of a cadence in your mind already as to how often you'll be checking in?
Pretty often. I would think, I know, not particularly myself, but I know Ryan is pretty much every day communicating with these people. And when I'm talking to them, it's pretty much it's the forefront of everything that's going on right now. So it's something that we talk about regularly.
Okay, so yours is on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Okay, Justino?
Yeah, in my list, maybe just following the same, maybe as Brian and Brenda mentioned, is always flow top to bottom. So in the case of the key people identifies all the managers, functional managers, plus the IT, which is not a management position, but coordination, and the new model launch coordination. So all functional managers plus these two key elements in the total operation.
Great, thank you. Hector?
Basically, as Justino mentioned, I consider all the managers, including the coordinators, as a new model launch and IT, and of course the finance team. So in terms of the supply chain manager, also I include all the people, logistic, materials, purchasing, and receiving, because it is a key element for us in order to keep the information on the system.
Okay, great. Ryan, did you have anything else to add in addition to what Brenda shared?
Yeah, I guess a little. I mean, obviously we're daily talking with everyone because it's also about workload balancing, as I talked about in the beginning of this call. That's basically the main topic right now, is trying to balance all the workloads. So trying to deal with those stressful factors. So it is a daily conversation, but I'm also trying to keep in touch a lot with Chad. Obviously on the logistics side, that's a little more of a challenge, I'd say, than the finance. The finance seem to be going along pretty well. But definitely the logistics side's been a bit of a struggle. And that comes obviously with the tie to the floor too. A lot of these logistics people have to be on the floor every day, watching over everything. So they have more of a struggle. Like, not saying the finance doesn't have a lot to do. Of course they do, and they have a lot, but it just seems it's more of a struggle on the logistics side. So that's where I'm obviously putting most of my time and energy into, to make sure that we review all those items.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we have Kenny. You didn't have. Did you have a list of stakeholders that you're communicating with?
Yes. So can I share my screen real quick? Because Suzanne, myself, and Mike met to review the Farmington Hills team.
Sure.
So
go ahead.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yep. So Chad, you can give Kenny a sharing of his screen.
Yeah, I'm still getting the same error.
Can do it. I think you can. You got this now. Sorry, I have
There it is.
Trying to work with your phone call, with your phone account.
Sorry about that. So let me know if you can see it now.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, yep. So like I was saying, so myself, Mike Baker, and Suzanne met to review all of the teams that will be impacted in Farmington Hills, and we developed this sort of matrix right here. Because while all three of us are going to be the change champions, we decided that we would basically make a primary change champion for each one of the departments, and then the other two individuals can support as needed. So what we wanted to do, though, is we wanted to identify primary contacts within the group, but also start identifying who the SMEs are and some of the users. So we met one day before session 2 actually started to start putting this together, and then we're going to use this to log what communications have been made and go from there and just continue to add on to this.
Okay. This is an excellent example, and I don't know if you could maybe even share the template out, because one of the greatest challenges to ERP implementation and the #1 failure is lack of systemic communication. So this is a very helpful way to sort of track and identify the specific context so the individuals are not overwhelmed. So thank you. This is a great tool.
Yeah, no problem. I believe it's already saved on SharePoint, and Suzanne had sent out the link on Tuesday the 30th. So if anyone has any questions though and can't find it, please feel free to reach out and let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Let's see, where am I? Mike.
Yeah, so basically echoing what, or repeating what Kenny just said. So basically using that template, we identified who the stakeholders were for each of our various leads that we'll be taking in Farmington. So for example, for myself, I've met with each of my responsible groups already. And it's quite interesting because some people feel as though things are going very well and other people do not know what's going on yet. But I kind of, a note that I took away from that was, I think it really depends on the individual, right? So those individuals that are rather assertive tended to know much more than those individuals who, at least in my opinion, are not as assertive. So I think that's going to be key, is really reading people's personalities, or at least our perception of the personalities, to make sure that we're helping out those that might not be as assertive as others, and those that are rather assertive might not need as much support from us as those that are not.
Okay, great, thank you. Gabrielle.
Yes, basically, I'm work with supply chain management. The purchasing team, we are working with quality and new model launch. All the people is working on implementation SAP implementation, and is basically the most people that work with me and my team.
Okay, thank you. Jose?
I believe that the stakeholders could be the managers for each department and the coordinators and probably supervisors.
Okay. So do you have a list of the actual people as well?
I have not finished yet, only start with the list.
Okay, yeah, so important to finish that list so that you're going to be moving on to the next exercise for next time. Okay. Edson? Edson?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute. As far as the list, of course, in this, I identified that the production people was not included not only managers, but also some team leaders in this project. We started working with all the supply chain team, especially. So the first week since the training was named as the logistic process, so we were under the understanding that it was only related for supply chain team. So in the last days, it was identified that also some input from the production guys is required. And also talking with Cheyenne, we were working on routing information. So also people from engineering or the new model launch team, they are also being identified as people that need to be involved in this communication, as also Hector and Justino mentioned.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Suzanne and Yvette, do you have any other questions to follow up in terms of the homework of how people are listing, identifying their stakeholders?
No, what I am going to do though is add to our Farmington Hills worksheet and also send you guys out the 2 questions that Sham and Jason and Karen sort of surfaced today that you should be incorporating into your conversations.
Can you just remind the folks what those 2 questions are again?
The first question is, does the process that you're using during testing look like what you normally did during the regular AGC process? Does the new process look like the old process? And the second one is, are you testing? How's testing going? So I wouldn't maybe say, are you testing? I would say, how is testing going? How frequently are you getting in there? So instead of a yes, no question, make it an open question. I'll send it to everybody.
Okay. Yvette, maybe just translate to just emphasize that point, but also any other comments.
¿Algún otro comentario, alguna otra pregunta? ¿Sí queda claro? Les van a mandar el formato que presentó Kenny, en donde se identifican quiénes son las personas con las cuales se tienen que contactar y quién va a ser el que los va a estar contactando también. Y bueno, lo que decía Susan, ¿no? Que había comentado Sham. 2 preguntas, ¿no? El nuevo sistema hace lo mismo que el sistema anterior, obviamente de una mejor manera, pero sí cumple con lo que ustedes necesitan que cumpla. Ese es punto número 1. Y la segunda pregunta que hay que estar haciendo a las personas que ustedes identificaron es si sí están haciendo las pruebas en el sistema, ¿no? Para ver si el sistema sí está funcionando adecuadamente o no.
Okay.
¿Eso claro?
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
All right. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for reporting out on your homework. And see. I'm going to now start to go through the step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is going to be building, or step 2 is going to be building on step 1. And in this work, we're going to take a look at the change management process in pulling apart and identifying particular tools that can be integrated. So step 1 is really about identifying presenting issues for a problem or for an opportunity that you're engaged in change. AGC Way has the 2E and 3E. And then part of this is to help you, it's the 5 genisms. And part of this is then taking a look at helping you identifying what is the scope of the problem. Most of it you might be able to address in the moment, but also being able to identify at what point do you need to maybe escalate this further up? When do you need to reach out to peers? And then identifying the approach for gathering the data to dive a little bit more deeply in understanding specifics. And then also posing questions to clarify. With this, I just want to review and emphasize the 2E, 3E as being able to extend your knowledge and also then establish your own fundamental rules. The 3E is about being exact, going to the exact place, going to the floor. As I hear about your stakeholders, I wasn't hearing a lot about going to the floor or the actual users. So do take a look at your stakeholder list to see whether there are some additional people that you might be forgetting to include, and then to be able to see the exact object and then confirm with the exact facts. So I just want to highlight this point about the AGC way, that it's very important for this first step in identifying a problem so that you're able to gather a bigger picture and being able to get at doing a deeper diagnosis. So in step 2, we're going to drill down to some very specific skills as well as tools. And here you're looking to analyze the whole workflow. And part of it is gathering data both with observation and interviewing in order to analyze how the flow of tasks is being constructed. And the 2 questions of does the process you use in testing look like the old one is a very important question that contributes to this. And then being able to build your investigation and questioning skills along with root cause. So when you're doing root cause analysis, it's about really being able to both get a bigger picture and be able to see things from multiple perspectives. So when you're identifying the scope in step 1, it's about scanning the work processes to identify what system is in place to check in on the progress. Where are the sources of information that you're using, whether it be from other users or subject matter experts in their own units. This is also where it's really important to connect in with the core team members on the KPIs, and at a minimum to do so on a weekly basis. So think about when you will schedule that and who is your direct contact. You may have more than one person as different issues arise. So with this is things may escalate, things may stabilize out, but in a change process, it's never an easy, clean, stepwise process. It's often a messy, meandering process where there may be some very stressful moments until issues are resolved. And then also work with both the core team and plant managers to think about how you can pursue the issue for further change management initiatives. In gathering the information, when we take a look at 2E and 3E, consider how you are structuring questions. So one of the homeworks here then is to apply the 5 W's of what, who, when, where, how, and why. This is a simple checklist that when you identify an issue, do you have answers to each of these questions that can help formulate that a more complete picture. So with this is to think about the levels of analysis and the data gathering and some very important skills that along with the tools that we'll go through is to focus on listening, observation, questions for interviewing, questions for surveys. So questions for interviewing, questions for surveys will be combining. And then being able to conduct a gap analysis, force field analysis, and root cause analysis. So I'm going to talk a little bit more than what I will intend to in the condensed time that we have. So in taking a look at these different skills and tools, one of the first things is to figure out, is the issue that you're looking at, is this an individual's issue? Meaning that it's really just the person that is struggling? Or is this a group level issue? Is it multiple people having the same issue? Are there some group dynamics that's affecting it? Or is there actually a systemic issue that is contributing to it? So the first thing to do when you're doing an organizational analysis is to figure out what level are you working at? Is it simply somebody who is fearful that, you know what, if I change and adapt, it looks like my job is going away because I don't have enough work? Or is it that I have to build more skills that I'm not comfortable in learning? So part of the key here is that when you are starting off with organizational diagnosis, figure out what level that you're working at. And as leaders, you often have significant influence on individuals, especially if you build out your positive leadership skills with coaching and providing positive support. Once in a while, you're going to come into a really hard situation with individuals, people who will adamantly not want to change and engage in active sabotage. That is a time to call for help, okay? Do not take on someone who is going to be an active saboteur in the process. So it's very helpful to make sure that you are engaged in understanding what level are you working at when you start out your diagnosis. So I want to invite you in here for a moment to sort of provide any translation or address any questions on this.
There you go. ¿Alguna duda, alguna pregunta? ¿Todo claro? Gabriel García. Amalia. Héctor.
Todo claro, Ivette.
¿Como el agua de horchata o?
Como agua de calcetín.
Sí, está claro, Ivette.
Okay. Everything okay?
Are we all good on that? Okay, thank you. All right. So one of the first skills and the most important skill in change management is around listening. Okay, and we're going to take a little bit of time in taking a look at both verbal and nonverbal communication here. And I want to emphasize that we all think we listen well, but it's usually the most underestimated skill that is deployed. So we often overestimate our skill and underestimate the need for listening because there's a lot of pressure and stress. Listening is one of the things we do most poorly. So when things are overwhelming, when things are very intense, we often don't listen well. So in change management though, it is, I would say, is the #1 most critical skill, especially when you're doing diagnostics. And that will help you discern to identify effective solutions. So I want to put listening within a broader context of both verbal and nonverbal communication. As you take a look at people's body posture and positioning, their facial expression, their speaking voice and tone, gesture movement. I call this whole body listening in being able to attend to what people say to you. Oh yeah, we're good for change. But then you may notice that their nonverbal is not consistent with their words. And that's very important to be able to observe and to listen carefully. Is there consistency? Because if you miss that, you could easily see how problems can also escalate. So I have a brief test for all of you. I would like you to list number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on a sheet of paper. And I want you to see if you can read these nonverbals. Each of these faces, this has been based on research that has been done on nonverbal communication, and this is based upon your observation skills. I would like you to take a look to identify, is number 1, what is that person communicating? Is it contempt, happiness, anger, fear, sadness, surprise, or disgust? Number 2, what is that person expressing? So I'd like you to list 1 to 7 and identify the particular emotional state of that particular expression. You have 90 seconds to do so. Okay. 30 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds. All right, so from 1 to 7, expression number 1. Can someone share with us what that expression is? What do you have for number 1?
Fear.
Fear?
Fear. This is Kenny. I have fear as well.
All right, there you go. Number 2.
Contempt.
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 Nice. Number 3.
Anger.
Disgust.
Disgust.
Disgust. Okay. Number 4.
Anger.
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 Okay. Number 5.
Sadness.
Sad.
Sadness.
Number 6.
Happiness.
Happiness.
Okay. And number 7.
Price.
Okay. How many people, raise your hands and put a happy sign on it if you have all 7 out of 7. Okay, put your hand up, 7 out of 7. Okay, excellent work. What that means is that when you're engaged with people, you're able to communicate and read their nonverbals more effectively. For those who have a little bit less, just check in and pay attention a little bit more to build your skill in reading people's nonverbal expressions. Yeah. This has been based upon multiple research studies that universally there are these 7 expressions that human beings express regardless of culture. What the subject matter may differ across cultures, but these are 7 recognizable emotions regardless of cultural background. All right, nice work. So this is just a brief quote from Mahatma Gandhi. This also means that you have to manage your nonverbals when you're engaged with people, because how you feel about the change management process will have an impact on how others will react to change. Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. Mahatma Gandhi. So thinking about how your emotional state in entering into a communication, how you're sending messages about change, is being intentional about your thoughts. If you're having a really bad day, find someone you can confide in and recalibrate yourself to get yourself back to a happy space. All right? Because that will have an impact on all those that come across your path. So the next, I want to focus very specifically on listening for a bit. And it's about, because this is how you will engage with self and others. And for this listening, it's actually from a 3-day training that I've condensed into about a few minutes for you. In terms of how critical it is to engage in reflective listening. So part of this is being able to build on empathy, where you're able to see the other person's point of view. So when change is not going well, it's because it's like 3 blind men touching the elephant. One, when they touch the trunk, it's a very big, lumpy thing. The skin is rough, and someone else's touching tail, it's hairy. Someone who touches the tusk is hard and smooth. It's just that we come into change with very different perspectives, and people see and experience the change process very differently. So empathy allows us to see things from the other person's perspective, but it's also important to feel with the other person. And so when you're able to express empathy, you're able to build deep relationships and high quality relationships that's positive based on trust. So I have a brief video to share with you by Brene Brown on empathy. And some of you might have seen it before. I'm hoping this comes through clearly. It'll only be about 3 minutes.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar. Perspective taking. The ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And
Whoops, sorry.
to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, oh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right. Before going further, reactions and thoughts and comments. The role of empathy in listening and in change management. What is your reaction? What is your thought about empathy in change management?
Sometimes it's actually hard to have sometimes the whole empathy side versus sympathy, because like, as they talk about, like, you know, sometimes you don't always want to respond with all the answers. They just might want to connect with you. And that's, as our role in being leaders, often that's what we're doing, is we're always steering, you know, and having the answers for them. But sometimes that's not what they want to hear, like, as you said, right? So that can be often difficult in our roles.
Yes. And that's one of the most important point in change management when you're doing diagnosis. If it's an individual issue, some people may just need to vent at that moment. And even if you have an answer and a solution, hold on to it and pose a question to lead them there versus giving them the solution. And sometimes people may not be ready for the solution or want to hear it just yet. Other thoughts?
I'd say I know quite a lot of times when someone is perhaps venting or frustrated, you try to relate with perhaps an example of something that maybe from your side has happened or something like that. You can tell from the expression on a person's face whether that's what they want to hear or not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to hear about what you have to say. I just want you to listen to me.
Yes, and the term that I have for that is self-referencing, and at worst, it's hijacking the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's about my problem, I need you to listen to me. Don't talk about yourself then, just listen. So that's very important. Thank you. That's an excellent point. Okay, so in taking a look about some important qualities about empathy, I want us to think about some key elements about taking perspective and keeping out of judgment. And regardless of, because people are at different spots along a change curve. So while you may be further ahead as change champions, other people are still coming, they may be a little bit behind and not just quite in the same spot where you are. So then also recognize that emotions in the change process is very real because of the stress that comes with change for many people. And then being able to communicate that recognition. So both recognizing the emotional space that that person in, I can see you're really sad about that, or I can see you're very upset, but being able to state that, and that allows for people to see that you're understanding the situation. So the key essential skills, and I'm going to go through this a little bit more quickly because you'll get the slide set, but full attention is most important. When we have a lot of stress and high demand and we're busy with things, it's very important to try to get those things done, send that text, and not be fully present. So part of the key is managing your own nonverbals, putting aside the computer, putting down the phone, and being able to focus on the person fully. And skill number 2 is having positive acceptance. So part of the, even when you disagree with someone, it's about accepting their perspective and being able to provide some of those verbal cues. Well, I care, or I see, and being able to communicate with your nonverbals as well, where your eyes are sustained, you're not kind of like looking over the shoulder or like trying to scan your desk for things or look at messages, but being able to manage your nonverbals where your head is nodding, your hands and arms are kept open. So an open posture is very important, because this approach with the crossed arms, so, and we do it so automatically, especially when we're close. So being able to manage your nonverbal for positive acceptance is critical, because even when you say, I care, but you're standing there with your arms like this, it sends a very different message. People will believe the nonverbal before they believe the verbal. The third skill is really being able to be supportive, being encouraging. So encouraging the person to tell more. And there's an important difference here that we talk about questions for later, but when you are engaged in an empathetic communication, it is not about asking a lot of questions. It is really creating a space by letting people know that, you know, I'm here for you. You know, tell me more, that you're willing to hold that space to say, I'm listening. Okay, so these are some helpful starters to let people know that you're willing to listen and listen with empathy. So there's a difference, a caution about not using questions when you're engaged in an empathetic state, because encourage sharing means that you're inviting people to be more vulnerable with you. And oftentimes in a change management process, people are often scared and they're worried about their competence. Doing something new means that they will not be as good at it. So there's a high level of vulnerability. If you really want someone to be vulnerable to share with you, then it's important that you provide that openness so that the other person takes ownership and control of the conversation without you solving the problem or hijacking the conversation. In comparison, data mining is drilling and interrogating the person, and then you position yourself in a hierarchical manner to take control of gathering data in order to solve the problem. So while you may be there to help solve the problem, think of yourself in being able to equip others to solve their own problems. The fourth skill is, this is the hardest to do, especially in the current culture we are in. A Western culture. Staying silent is really hard. Think of when you ask a question of how long we wait for people to answer us. So this is where, there are conversations we have in our head that we're reacting to people. It's about turning down the noise in our head and then being able to focus. So you just be silent and just hold that space. So with this, the work of empathetic listening is very hard. Because I refer to it often as emotional labor, because you're extending yourself to others because you care. And really it takes work to see the world from a different position than what you might be comfortable with. So it takes work to quiet the noise and the chatter in your head, the conversations that goes on. I can't believe they're saying that. I've said this, I've told them 15 times already. Why didn't they listen? So all that chatter may be going in your head. That prevents you from being empathetic. So therefore, it's really taking a look at how you will have the energy to be able to engage. So I want to stop at this point and check in with Yvette as well. If you could check in with our folks to see how people are understanding this.
¿Todo bien? ¿Están despiertos? Más bien la pregunta es esa, ¿están despiertos?
Sí, todavía estamos despiertos.
Todavía hay ver.
El Justino se aprovecha porque como tiene los ojillos así medio cerrados, así como que no se sabe si está dormido o despierto.
No se nota.
No se nota. ¿Todo bien? ¿Están siendo empáticos o simpáticos? Tania, los tienes que mantener tú despiertos, ¿no?
Sí, aquí están entretenidos y verdes.
Ok, gracias. Okay, Diana.
All right, gracias. All right, so here we have another brief video to share about listening and listening effectively.
It's just, there's all this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. But you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't.
Try to see things my way. But keep on talking till I can go on. We can work it out. We can work it out.
So sympathy versus empathy. Okay, fix the problem, or you know what? I just care about you. All right. So as we look at this, it's a big difference in terms of where people just want you to hear. In contrast, I just want you to have another clip. This one's just a short, but I thought this is a little bit of a contrast. And it's based upon after that first one, Nail in the Head came out, Screw in the Head came out as a follow-up.
It's just, there's so much pressure. I just don't know what it is.
Babe, you got a screw in your head.
You always do this.
No, I'm pointing out that.
No, you want to fix it, and I just need you to listen.
You're right. It must be hard.
It is. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sometimes fixing your car
Problem
is
solved.
easier than fixing your life. Cure auto insurance.
So, anyhow, 2 examples. So as you're looking at listening and being empathetic, it's about supporting others in order for them to arrive at a solution. All right. So that's why it's important to sort of figure out as you're engaged in empathetic listening, whether it's an individual issue, a group, or organizational systemic issue. So while empathetic listening advises not to use questions, organizational diagnosis does use questions, and there are some important guidelines that I would just want to briefly go over. And in taking a look at when you are posing question, Suzanne actually pointed it out earlier when we were talking with the core team, is that there's both closed versus open questions. And what would be an example of a closed question versus an open question? I'm interested in someone sharing with us the difference between the two.
So a closed question, when you can basically, you can only answer it with a yes or no, and open is a type of question that allows the person to dive deeper into it.
Yes, and that was a really good example that that she had pointed out about testing. Okay, what were the 2 questions for around testing? One question was closed, and then Suzanne shifted it and changed it to open. Who was listening and remembered?
No one ever listens to.
Someone shows them that they've listened to Suzanne.
I think the closed question was, are you testing, right? And then the open question would be, tell me how your testing is going.
Perfect. Excellent. See, Suzanne, someone
Thank
did.
you, Kenny.
No problem.
Excellent. All right. So closed question gives yes or no answers. Someone can just say yes, and then you move on. But what happened is that when you move on, you will have missed gathering deeper data. So we often automatically tend to ask closed questions because they're simpler and they're easier. So just take half a second to stop yourself to reframe it into an open question. And that's why when you use the 5 W's, that will be helpful. Then also probe for clarification, and then there are questions that will probe with us to probe the assumptions. So going deeper to understand the reason, to gather evidence. So separating out whether someone has just an opinion or is it an actual fact. And oftentimes people will share their opinion as a fact, you know. And so therefore it's important for you to dive deeper to be able to separate the 2. Also check for implications and consequences, and then ask questions about the questions themselves. So these are just sort of some general guidelines around questions for consideration. And then as you develop your questioning skills, you will become more skillful, and we'll do some more sharing around questions when we gather during session 3. I want to move us to a couple of tools that is part of your homework. So in the gap analysis and the force field analysis, you will need to pose questions, and you will need to engage in very active listening with empathy. So being able to do empathetic listening for both the gap analysis and the force field analysis will be important as you build your skills to apply the tools. Gap analysis is fairly straightforward. It is both a qualitative and a quantitative approach to take a look at where you are currently and where it is that you want to go. So therefore, a gap analysis is, okay, what is and oftentimes you can identify the desired state through goals, the goals that you want to achieve, and where are you with the current state. So the change that we want to see, being able to articulate that, and then being able to identify where are we currently. So in applying the gap analysis, you can also identify in a quantitative manner, what are some of the measures that will get you there? And so if we want to reduce defects in working with in production, oftentimes that's a fairly common metric that many organizations have, is being able to reduce defects, say by 10% over the next 6 months. Current state is X number of defects. What are some of the steps for improvement? So you're basically doing the gap analysis. In change management, some of the gap analysis is more qualitative. So people are right now feeling happy about the change. There will come a time when they may be less happy or more stressed. So it may be reducing stress around change management or increasing skills around supporting the change. So that may be much more qualitative. So what I'd like you to do is to try to conduct a simple gap analysis with your stakeholders. Do it either once or twice to help identify various issues where you can see the desired state of where people want to go and where are they currently. So that's one of your homework assignment, is to apply this particular tool. Okay. Yvette, I'd like to check in with the team to make sure they understand a gap analysis and as a homework assignment as well.
¿Está claro lo que hay que hacer para la tarea? Tania, si quieres tú contéstame para los de San Luis porque luego se quedan callados y no sé si sí o no.
Sí, Ivette, está claro.
Muchas gracias, Amalia Viña. ¿Y los de San Luis, claro?
Ay, perdón. Está claro, Ivette, solo que estaban anotando.
Ah, ok, ok. Son buenos estudiantes.
Okay.
Okay, Diana.
All right. So the key here is to speak with one of your stakeholders or a small group of your stakeholders to practice using this tool at least once between now and next week. The next one is referred to as a force field analysis. And the force field analysis is a holistic picture that identifies forces for change. What are some of the driving forces for change? At the same time, on the opposite side here is what are some of the forces that's resisting change? What are some of the restraining forces? So let's just take a look at the ERP in a big picture. What are some examples that you could see about the whole OASIS project? What are some of the things that's driving this whole change management? What are some of the forces for change? For people who haven't spoken, please share your thoughts.
I think the forces for change would be, or an example of one would be really just the need to evolve as an organization to become more efficient and more competitive.
Okay, so increased efficiency is one of them. Okay.
And standardization too.
Say again, repeat.
A standardization, so everyone's on the same page in the same system.
Okay. So seeking standardization to be on the same page. Good.
Si alguien lo quiere decir en español, adelante, ¿eh?
Yeah, make the life easier for the different functions when they interact among themselves.
Easier, okay.
Maybe have one system instead of 3 different systems.
All right. Any
Get
other?
more faster the information.
Faster information. Okay. What else?
Improve our quality information.
Improve information quality. Great. Now, what are some of the, we could list many more, but on the other side, what are some of the resisting forces? What are some of the reasons that people are not wanting to engage in this change process?
So some of the feedback
Say again.
is that the system is complex. SAP is complex.
Yep. It's a complex system. So it makes it hard. What else?
We've tried before and failed.
I think overall there's fear of the unknown as well.
Okay, fear of unknown. That is a huge one.
They believe that it's more work to do.
More work. Yes. Without more pay. What else?
One thing is when things work, why change it?
That's a good one. Why change when things are working? Okay. So this is the beginning of a force field analysis. What you would add to each of those is that when you think about these forces, you could add numbers to them to say which is stronger and which is weaker. And it allows you to get a bigger picture. So the second homework item is to apply the force field analysis with your stakeholders. Have a conversation with either one or more of a group of folks that you are working with and go through what are the driving forces of change. Your role is not to give the answer. Your role as change champion is to facilitate the conversation. So you're just listening and you're probing and asking questions for people to really think deeply, and then also to identify what are some of the forces of resistance. And it's very important that you manage your nonverbal when you are facilitating this conversation. So manage your nonverbal expressions that allows people to be as open as possible. Any questions on this one? Okay. Yvette, can you check in with me, check in with the folks? Any questions on this? About the homework?
¿Está todo claro?
Sí.
Claro.
Ok, muy bien.
All right. The root cause analysis is the 5 whys, and it's a very simple basic tool out of the AGC Way toolbox. And being able to drill down to the 5 whys, you're welcome to apply this particular tool. And it is helpful when you identify an issue initially to just take a few minutes to walk through, to dig through the 5 different layers of why. So each time when you see an issue, query the situation, probe and say, why is this going on? And then given the answer, why it's going on. How many people have used this? I'm assuming everyone has. Yes? Not everyone? Others? Okay. If you haven't, do ask a peer in your group or one of your colleagues to help walk you through one as a practice. Oftentimes people get stuck and give up on the 3rd why. And the 4th why is hard. They go, wow, why are you asking why? And people get frustrated. But it's very important for you to continue holding the space to wait for people to really surface an answer as you can probe much more deeply. I want to invite at this point in time Susanna or Yvette for further comments or questions. No? Okay. Suzanne, anything?
I think we're good. I think it is a tool that we often overlook, and the importance of getting down as low as you can will help you to truly get to root cause. And as you're engaging in those conversations, you can even say, let's exercise one of our AGC way tools and just try to get to, you know, as far down in this issue as we can. And further, we're going to have Fernando Garcia join us next week, who's going to talk more about these tools and give us some examples on how we could use them next week.
Yeah. Yeah, and Fernando will also go through our next one. I'm just going to, the Ishikawa cause-effect diagram. He will walk us through this one. I just want to just show you that this is another root cause analysis tool. And oftentimes it's referred to as the fishbone diagram. And so we'll do more work in this. But I thought that given what we have done so far, is that you are able to get started with organizational diagnosis for change by taking a look at these various tools. You know, so using your listening skills with empathy, empathetic listening, and being able to use questions for interviewing and surveys. The focus here is to do some practice with the gap analysis and the force field analysis. Okay. So, questions or comments for what we have covered so far? I'd like to go around the room and just check in with folks to see what reactions you have, or whether you've had experience with this, or who you might pick in terms of your stakeholder list to go through a gap analysis and a force field analysis. All right. So I'm going to start with who I have on my screen. Edson first, and then Jose. So when you take a look at your stakeholder list, who might you conduct a gap analysis with? Who might you conduct a force field analysis with?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question very well.
Okay, if that maybe help me out here for a little bit, is to ask and conduct a gap analysis and a force field analysis with your stakeholders. Who would you be doing this with?
Creo que el problema no es el inglés, ¿no? Creo que sí se entiende. O Edson, ¿cuál era tu pregunta, Edson? Justino, ¿la estás explicando tú?
Sí, Justino me está explicando.
Ah, okay.
Yes, as you said, it's not the English, it's just I didn't understand the concept.
Okay, so you have a list of stakeholders. And so for homework for next week, I want you to conduct a gap analysis with one of the stakeholders or a group of the stakeholders. And I'd like you to also conduct a force field analysis with a different person or a group. So it could be one person or it could be a group of people. Who would that be on your stakeholder list?
And Diana, maybe just to better understand, I mean, this gap analysis or the force field analysis is going to be about the implementation of SAP, how they feel about it, what they think, I mean, where we are, where we should be with regards of the gap analysis, and the force field analysis with regards of what do you think is the forces that are
driving the change,
driving this, and the forces that aren't resisting it, right?
Yes. So who would you be doing this with? That's my question. So if you take a look at your stakeholder list, Edson, who would it be on your list?
Okay, I will conduct this with one of the production managers and one of the team leaders.
Okay.
From the AVO area.
Okay.
Those guys have been involved in the last SAP training session. So for sure, this exercise will be very helpful with them.
Okay.
Conducting this with them.
All right, great. So conduct this exercise and bring back the results next week.
Okay.
Okay. So we're meeting on Tuesday next week. Okay. Jose next, and then Amelia, and then Ryan.
Okay, I will do this practice with Edgar Gonzalez, the production manager.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Amalia?
It's the same like Jose.
Okay. Ryan?
So for the gap analysis, I mean, I would probably ask both. Like when I talk to the stakeholders, which you do on a daily basis, I think both would be good questions, like gap analysis and force field analysis. But I would say when it comes to the management level, that's when you probably talk more about like the force field and like what are the resistance you're seeing for change. You know, what are the driving forces here? Like you're going to talk more of the management style, I would say, with that one. Whereas the gap analysis, that could be right from the bottom, like the key people that are doing it every day. You know, what are you seeing as issues and what is your preferred state? That's an open question that could be on anyone. So that would be my only comment here, is that you could kind of steer yourself a little bit differently between the management and regular people.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Ryan. That's very helpful. Hector?
In my case, I think I will apply to supply chain manager and part of their team.
Okay. Good. Mike? Mike Baker? And then Gary.
Yeah, I think that I'll start with Nick Whitman from the Process Technology Group. He's actually located down in Bell Fountain. But when I spoke with him, it was, they were, I believe, his group, not sure how it was going to really be impacting them. So I think this would be a good tool to really help them understand, or help Nick and his group understand how SAP will truly impact them.
Okay. Gabby? Or Gabrielle, sorry.
That's okay. Yes, I will apply with my supply chain team and purchasing team.
Okay.
Yes.
Justino and then Brenda.
So maybe I was thinking for the force field analysis, trying to determine what is the motivation of the forces that is driving this change, and also the forces that is resisting it. Maybe I will go with, now because there have been more involved in this ERP project with Edson and Hector. I think they, again, I have the advantage that these two guys are in the both core teams that is making implementation of this. So it's, for me, it's very important to understand what is the people that has more information see about this project. And the gap analysis, really, maybe I would like to explore more, as Ryan mentioned, everybody is going to be touched sooner or later by this project. Is maybe I want to explore at the next level, what they see as a future state, and what do they see in terms of gap. Can be, as you mentioned, qualitative or quantitative. I'm curious to see if how much is qualitative and how much is quantitative.
Ah. And you can make that decision. Sometimes it's just a practice with the tool to do so.
Yeah.
Okay. Brenda and then Kenny.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I would use the gap analysis on the members. Now that they're seeing the system ability through the training and the testing and stuff like that, you know, giving their comparison of what we have now and what we could have and what they see as you know, the end result. And then the force field analysis with the managers that are involved in the project to determine those resistances and stuff.
Okay, thank you. And Kenny. Whoops, you're muted somehow.
Sorry about that. I had to jump off and lead another call at 4, so I missed the last 20 minutes of that presentation. So.
Okay. I will have maybe Suzanne catch you up. All right.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Okay.
know how to find her.
Okay, good. Suzanne and Yvette, if you want to have any input at this point in time, and Tanya, I know that you're in a support role there, so I won't, you're not required, but if you choose to want to practice, you're welcome to. But Suzanne and Yvette, any other input or suggestions to support the team member as they practice with these two tools for moving forward into next week?
Yeah, I'm going to use the gap analysis in kind of smaller chunks, like a quick PDCA, where I can check in and say, so what is the current state of testing? And the ideal state would be that they should be testing more frequently now. So to try to understand where are people at with testing, and maybe I'll run a second one around that other question, the process question. How are people feeling about the current processes? Does it look like the AGC wave processes? And I'll be running that with the new model launch group as well as the supply chain group.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yvette?
Actually, what I was going to say at the beginning, and Sham commented, right, or made this suggestion to ask people a question about, if the system is looking the way that the old system used to look, or if we are getting what we need from the system. I think we can complement that with a gap analysis depending on what is the answer that we receive, right? If somebody says, you know what, it doesn't look the way it used to look, or I'm not getting what I used to get, this is a good opportunity to use a gap analysis.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting, where is it that you think that you want to be, and then we can create a plan to get there, right? So it is, I think by combining these two activities that we already said that we were going to do, we can practice the whole of the session.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. All right, so just to review, as you're taking a look at diagnosing where people are at with the organizational change, the PDCA is certainly, as Suzanne mentioned, an important tool. But I also want to take you back to our first session where we had talked about Cotter's organizational change model. Use and practice skills for empathetic listening, and then using the questioning and the interviews and that helps you to lead to developing an effective gap analysis and force field analysis. Just as a reminder, Cotter's change model, if you take a look at the column here on the right-hand side, if you notice any of these emotions, the nonverbal emotions, you can then go back and check. Is the vision clear? Do people have a clear understanding? Because a vision has been communicated, but they may or may not have a clear understanding. If they do, have they accepted that? And then if they have the skills and resources, there's an action plan along with evaluation, the sustainability and reward. So it will allow you to identify what are some of the gaps as well when you take a look at a presenting issue. So I do just want to share this with you as a reminder for you to take a look at as you embark in applying the gap analysis and the force field analysis. So when you're looking at this, don't be shy about using the 2E and 3E to gather your facts and being exact. So when you do the gap analysis and the force field analysis as a tool to bring back for homework for session 3, we're meeting next Tuesday, actually, not on the Wednesday. So we'll be meeting a day earlier. Just at least have one practice with the gap analysis, one with the force field analysis. And if you can, we'll do this in session, but you'll review it with the partner and then bring the results to class. So when you bring the results, you'll be able to share it with a different partner as well, but it may be helpful if you have time to review it with a partner. Okay, so that's what I have for today. And then we'll move into checkout. All right. So let's, we're rapidly closing to our end. So in checking out, the checkout question here is, what is an important takeaway that you will practice from today's session? Okay, I'm going to start with my screen here with Amalia, Justino, and then Hector. Okay, what is an important takeaway from today, Amalia, including anything that the core team might have done or said or shared? Thinking about our...
¿Cuál es, Ivette, cuál es que, lo importante que me perdí?
Ajá. Que algo que hayas aprendido del día de hoy, algo con lo que te quedas del día de hoy. ¿Ya de hoy? ¿La sesión de Diana o ya sea de la sesión del que se presentó al principio?
Gracias, Ivette.
No, ¿de qué?
For today, this session was very helpful for us because we remember the Access Way methodology. We know in the past, but sometimes we don't use every day, and some things I will forget something. I forget some things, and important for me for this session.
Okay, thank you. Gracias, Justino, and then Hector.
Yeah, well, for me, it's of course the change management involve a lot of tools and some guides, and what you described, that is, by reading it makes a lot of sense, but when you push to practice, like empathy and sympathy, I guess everybody understand and know I'm very sympathetic, or I have a lot of empathy for, but trying to practice or making conscious with a purpose, I think is what I take out and take my notes. And gap analysis and force field analysis, I guess maybe similar to Amelia, and you did very good. Trying to bring all this AGC way for the 2E, 3E, and then the 5Ys and the bonefish. I think technically everybody here, I think, can do. But when you apply to some process, changing process and practice with people, and using those technical tools into the human aspect, I think this is, for me, interesting. But how you link it, I think this is very creative, so thank you.
It's a lot messier. It's very messy. Okay. Hector, sorry, go
thank you. I have to go in 4 minutes, so thank you. And if you see me, it's not it's
okay,
because I have another conference call.
All right, adios. Okay. Hector and then Jose.
Thank you. So basically, I'm keeping with the empathy because I couldn't recall my first years as a married and the actual years. So it was very similar, these kind of things. And also in the work, this applies, of course, applies in the work. So I keep it with that. And also the way that we have to manage the communication and with our people, checking of course, the position and speaking the people, how they are looking when we are discussing some issues.
Okay, thank you. Jose and then Kenny.
Today I remember some tools, and I'm clear on how can I use for the homework.
Okay, thank you. Kenny?
Yeah, I think the topic, and I think we touched on it twice, the open and closed questions and being able to do that, because I'll admit that even before this now, like, I know that I ask a lot of closed questions, and hopefully I can take that learning or whatever and apply it in other places, and not just the change management though. You gotta get people comfortable, and you gotta get them willing to open up, and asking those and knowing what sort of open questions to ask, I think is critical.
Okay, thank you. Edson and then Gabrielle.
Yes, sharing some of the same reflections, talking about these 4 qualities that we talked about during this session. Staying out of judgment, and this respecting or while listening people, it's very important. with these open questions, so we allow people to express and try to connect. That's what I take as the most important things for today.
Okay, thank you. Gabrielle and then Ryan.
Okay, thank you for this session. It's very important. I understand we need to have empathy with our people, but I think not only we need empathy, but we need the people and follow, or the people follow us to improve our process. It's very important this time. Now all have sense for me before this session. This session was very important because I see all the methodology for this implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan and then Mike.
Oh yeah, a lot of the similar points that have been already made, but basically having the open-end questions. Often we're running at 100 miles an hour, and we have time management. We're trying to get to every person, so we're basically data-driven. We always go up. We ask what's the result? How many are you doing? Where should you be? It's that type of questions. It's very quick, and then we're on to the next person. So I think we have to slow down, sit down with them, and start asking open-ended questions and having empathy. It's a hard one. It's definitely something that we all struggle with.
Especially when you're under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yvette and then Suzanne. Oh, sorry, Mike, Yvette, and then Suzanne. Mike.
Yep. So from my side, my biggest takeaway, or the point that hit home, I think the most, was regarding the empathetic listening and not really letting the team members talk, rather than trying to solve all their issues or tell them what they should do to fix it. So I think that myself personally, I'm more of a fixer. So listening in that way can be challenging. So it was a good reminder.
Okay. Yvette and then Suzanne.
Yeah, I'm going to go in the same direction with the empathy part, not only because, it's so important that we practice this, but also sometimes in our manufacturing locations, when you are listening in an empathetic way, it takes time, right?
Yes.
And when you are in the floor, or you are in a manufacturing site, sometimes it's time that you don't have.
Yeah.
So there are two different things that are happening. Is your own perception that I need to be fast and I need to move fast. And then also is the perception of people around you that, oh yeah, they have time to be talking, so maybe they don't have enough to do. So we are always very much aware of these two things that are happening, right? So we are rushing ourselves, but also we are very much aware of the perception of other people around us. And we just need to block that. We need to focus on what is important. And we need to understand that at this point in this project, we need to dedicate time to this.
Yes. Great. Thank you. Suzanne, you have the last word.
Last word. So maybe similar to Edson, I tend to go in with a judgment, and I have some preconceived notion before I even get in there and answer the question. And I need to stop doing that and listen more. And I'm going to use that force field analysis to actually validate maybe what my assumption was, or what's in my gut, or to, to devalidate it. So I think the force field analysis is a really great tool, and I want to use it more.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been great working with all of you today, and I look forward to next Tuesday at the same time period. All right, you will get the link later on this afternoon. It will get sent out. All right. Have a good 6 days. Not really a week, but 6 days.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.